I was raised in a Christian home, and I accepted Christ into my life when I was 9. I just remember a lot in childhood, just never feeling like I quite fit in, or that I was attractive enough or good enough. As I just, came down the path of life, just realized that I wasn't going to be the lawyer that made everything right. I was going to be a social worker, and just really felt like I had a compassion for people and wanted to really serve people, and so that was my desire. And but continued throughout my young adult life, struggling with insecurity and wanting so much to be accepted and loved, and sought for people to fulfill that role. He was charming. I also think that it was a matter of, it was somebody who at the time seemed to be interested in me. I didn't really wait for the relationship to fulfill, and probably was intimate before God's plan and was already tied in before I could put the brakes on. And so, and once I had done that, then I felt like I was committed, and this is where I needed to be, no matter what the choices were, no matter what the consequences were. I found pornography in his materials, and I said that was not acceptable, and told him that was just something that would not go in my home. It would never go in my life. He basically just said he didn't love me anymore, didn't know why he ever married me, and we separated. And about a month and a half later, we came back together, and I just remember at the time I didn't really have a very strong relationship with God, but I remember just praying to God, God, just give me a heart to love him again. And I found pornography on my work computer, which really upset me because that could have jeopardized my job. And I confronted him about it and said that this did not belong in our home, and he said that, that was something that was not going to happen again. I went on with the relationship of just, complacency. Really, in retrospect, we lived our lives separately. We were content living our lives separately. We never really connected on a lot of levels. And I just figured that was how people were. We were probably married about 4 years, and I went on a business trip. And somebody on that business trip, a man, paid attention to me and flirted, and I just was like, wow, that was, that isn't happening. I don't understand what that's all about. But I really felt guilty about that, and I came home and I thought, well, we need to change our relationship. Instead of turning to the Lord, I decided I had a plan B, and that was to become pregnant. And so we decided that we would have a child. I was pregnant. I was 8 months pregnant, and we'd only fought 2 other times since the separation, and we were just in a kind of a heated discussion, and I asked him if he still wanted to be married, and over the phone he told me he did not want to be married anymore, didn't love me, never loved me, and only came back the first time because he felt sorry for me, and was never attracted to me, and those things. And that's not something that somebody who's 8 months pregnant really wants to hear. And I had the baby. And fortunately, at the same time, I was going to church, and my church family and friends surrounded me with love and just really started to teach me that there was another way to have your security, and that was through Christ. And, we did end up divorcing, and we divorced about 7 months after my daughter was born. But in that time, just had relationships and friends who just surrounded me. And, my daughter also at the same time was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, and turned around, and probably about 1 year and 3 months later thought I would read a book for a friend about sexual addiction. And really I was reading a book about my life and my life with my ex-husband. And really came to grips that our life and the problems that we had was about a sexual addiction that he had with pornography. And it really made sense. I now understood why he was on the computer a lot, and why we never seemed to connect, spiritually, intimately. It was like he was always absent, and never really gave everything to the relationship. And on the other hand, it also described me with my codependency and wanting so much to have him fulfill those things. And so it was a time where I started the 12 steps and just really realized that this wasn't just about me being a victim or anything, but it was about me not fully accepting God's plan for my life, and that daily I needed to take, so many times I put my ex-husband on the throne, and I needed to take him off the throne and place Christ there. And that's a daily thing that I do now, is I confess and say, Jesus, you are the Lord of my life. And, I put you above all other things, and nobody else defines me but you, God. And you say that I'm wonderfully and beautifully made, and I believe that. And so that's where I really daily have to go. It's been a wonderful experience, if you can say that, but it's been an experience where I've become closer with Christ. And also, on the other hand, I have forgiven my former husband, and he claims to this day that he now is a Christian himself. And so it's one of those things where I feel like God has reconciled that situation. And I think ultimately the legacy is for my daughter, that we are laying the groundwork for her to have salvation. In the midst of any struggle, whether it be from a disease from cystic fibrosis, or whether it be from an addiction, or whether it be from anything, that, the legacy is salvation. Truly, it was the 12 steps. I mean, truly it was looking at those things and realizing that I had these things that I was trying to fulfill, that it's almost like I put that need above the value of those people. And so once I recognized that, it was very easy for me to see that I had some reconciliation that I needed to do with those people, mainly my family, and some very close friends, because though I consider myself an honest person, to keep things, to be in denial, you have to have deceit with that. And so I really had to be honest with them, and I really also had to also not go to wanting so badly for them to accept me. That was, I always, did things so that I would gain their acceptance, and sometimes I would choose maybe a sinful path over a God's design to gain that. And so it was really looking at those things and recognizing that I needed to look at myself and say, this is not the way that God's plan is, and your acceptance lies in me. Today, when I look in the mirror, I always have to ask Christ to help me look in the mirror, because I try to look at him first and see my acceptance through him. And I have to just be truthfully honest. If I miss a day of that, it really shows, because then I start to really look to others to tell me that I'm good at this, or tell me, and that is just such a burden for a friend or for a spouse or for anybody to do. And that really only can be fulfilled by Christ. And I cannot tell you how many times I look to somebody else to do those things, and it really is not their job. When I was married, a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot of people, mostly my family, confronted me and told me that there just was not something right, that, I seemed happy on the outside, but there was something that was missing, or that the old Connie wasn't there. That was something that was said quite frequently. And, really my response to them was, well, I've gotten older, I've changed. You find some common things that you say to people. I mean, there should be like a denial dictionary or something, that somebody says something and you have the common response. Oh, I'm fine, or that's just the way things are, or that's just how marriage is, or, he's just like everybody else. I mean, those are just common things that you would say that just kind of pacify the situation. And what it really led to was you could never really have deep relationships. You could only have surface relationships unless you could find somebody who was going through maybe the same thing, and then maybe you could be a little bit more deep with them. But I would think the thing that you have to understand about sexual addiction is that it's never one-dimensional. It's never like it's just about pornography, or that it's just about spousal, having affairs, or it's multidimensional. And it's always a matter of trying to justify, and on the other hand, from the person who is the spouse, who is the codependent, it's a matter of always trying to kind of come behind and sweep up. And so I think it's one of those things where I think that sometimes we like to look at it and think that if we take the pornography away, or if the internet was not accessible, then the problem is gone. But I think it's more of a heart issue. And sometimes you can take the pornography away and you can take away that addiction, and sometimes you'll just move on to a new addiction. You have to look at it as it is a spiritual battle and is multidimensional, and it has to be attacked as such. It's definitely, I think that as I look back, I think those who have these struggles, you kind of surround yourself with other people who have similar struggles, because then that makes your normal. So you tend to surround, and so I would say there are a lot of other people, and I think that these days, I think there are a lot of people, we would like to say that, you know, oh, pornography, every man looks at it, it's no big deal. Or, you know, so I think we like to normalize it, because then it's not that bad. And we don't look at the core issue that it, you know, it takes the value out of marriage, it demeans people, and it also, you know, it keeps you at a very surface level in your relationships. And so I think it kind of takes that component out when you say, oh, it's no big deal. But you like to put yourself around people who will go along and play the game.